Girlfriend dumped me after her best friend went for her hard. Then he gloated that he won her. 3 weeks later, she's begging for me back, 'cause she missed me. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this story is genuinely wild. Happened about 6 months ago, and I'm finally in the headspace to share it. My ex-girlfriend dumped me because her supposed best friend convinced her I wasn't good enough, then proceeded to gloat about how he won her like she was some kind of prize at the state fair. 3 weeks later, she's blowing up my phone, begging for another chance, because apparently the grass wasn't greener, it was dead and full of dog crap. I'm 29, work as an operations analyst for a logistics company here in the Midwest. Not the most exciting job in the world, but it pays well, and I'm actually good at it. Basically, I spend my days optimizing supply chains and analyzing data patterns. Sounds boring to most people, but there's something satisfying about solving logistical puzzles. Got my own townhouse that I bought 3 years ago when the market dipped. 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, decent-sized garage for my project car. Nothing fancy, but it's mine, and I've fixed it up nice over the years. Changed out all the flooring myself, repainted every room, upgraded the appliances one by one. The mortgage payment is manageable and I'm building equity. Drive a 2016 Accord that's paid off. Do all my own maintenance because that's just how I was raised. No debt besides the mortgage, good credit score, retirement account that I contribute to every paycheck. Pretty standard mid-20s guy who got his life together early while everyone else was still figuring out their third career change. Met my ex, let's call her Brooke, through a mutual friend's game night about 2 years ago. My buddy Dave throws these monthly game nights at his place. Brooke came with one of Dave's wife's co-workers, and we ended up paired together for this team-based trivia game. She was 27, worked as a veterinary assistant at a clinic about 20 minutes from where I lived. Loved animals more than most people, which I respected. Had this energy that just drew you in. We spent most of that first game night just talking between rounds, found out we had similar taste in music, both loved hiking, both thought pineapple on pizza was acceptable. We hit it off immediately. She gave me her number at the end of the night, and we texted for the next week straight. Started dating officially after about a month of getting to know each other, which felt like the right pace. Things were solid for the first year and a half. We weren't one of those couples posting Instagram stories every 5 minutes, but we had a good thing going. Real connection, real compatibility. She'd come over after work still in her scrubs and we'd cook dinner together. I'd tell her about supply chain crises. She'd tell me about animals she treated. We'd watch whatever show we were binging, argue about who was doing dishes, fall asleep on the couch. She kept a toothbrush at my place after month 2. By month 4, she had a drawer. By month 6, half my closet was her clothes. Her stuff migrated to my place because my townhouse had more space and better parking. I met her family around month 3. Her parents lived about an hour away in a smaller town. Her dad worked for the county doing road maintenance. Her mom managed a local boutique. Good people, solid middle-class family. Her dad and I bonded over cars. He had this old Chevy truck he'd been working on for years. I'd help him out when we visited, handed him tools, offered suggestions. She met my family around the same time. My parents loved her immediately. Mom said it was nice to see me with someone who seemed genuinely happy. My younger sister grilled her with questions. Typical protective sibling stuff, but Brooke handled it like a champ. We fell into this comfortable routine. She'd stay over most nights, we'd meal prep together on Sundays, run errands, all that domestic partnership stuff. There's something satisfying about building a life with someone, even the mundane parts. Around the 1-year mark, we started talking seriously about the future. She wanted kids eventually, so did I. She thought 2 would be ideal, I was thinking 3. She wanted a house with a big yard for dogs, I wanted a garage big enough for a workshop. We spent Saturday mornings looking at real estate listings we couldn't afford yet, dreaming about what we'd buy in 5 years. Her friends became my friends became hers. We did couples game nights with Dave and his wife, went on double dates, had a whole social circle that revolved around our relationship. It was good, stable, the kind of relationship that people point to and say, that's the goal. Brooke had this best friend since high school named Garrett. Dude was one of those perpetually single guys who claimed he was focusing on himself, but really just couldn't commit to anything. He'd been in and out of relationships their whole friendship, nothing ever lasting more than a few months. He worked in sales for some pharmaceutical company, which basically meant he drove around dropping off sample medications at doctors' offices. Entry-level position, but he made it sound like he was running the whole operation. Drove a leased BMW he definitely couldn't afford. One of those guys who's all image and no substance but good at making it look otherwise. Had that fake charming personality that certain people eat up. Always had a story. Always had a witty comeback. Always the center of attention. the kind of guy who could sell ice to someone in winter. When we first started dating, Garrett was cool with me. We'd all hang out occasionally, grab food, catch a movie, normal friend group stuff. He'd ask me about work. I'd ask him about sales. We'd talk about sports and cars. I genuinely thought we were developing our own friendship. For the first 6 months or so, everything was fine. He'd send memes to our group chat, organize hangouts, include me in plans. I figured he was just a good dude who cared about his best friend's happiness and was making an effort to welcome her boyfriend. Looking back, I can pinpoint exactly when things started shifting. About 6 months ago, something changed in how Garrett interacted with both of us. February this year, Brooke and I were talking seriously about moving in together. My lease was coming up for renewal in June, and we'd been essentially living together anyway. She was at my place 5 or 6 nights a week. Her apartment was basically just storage for clothes she never wore. Made sense financially and emotionally to make it official. Her apartment was this tiny one-bedroom in an older building with thin walls and parking. That was a nightmare. You could hear her neighbors' conversations through the walls, the heater barely worked, and she was paying way too much for what she got. My townhouse had space, a garage, better location, lower cost per square foot. The math wasn't even close. We spent weekends looking at rental listings online, talking about whether we should find a bigger place together or if she should just move into mine. I was leaning toward her moving in because why give up a place I owned and had equity in? She agreed, said it made more sense financially. We started planning out what furniture we'd keep, what we'd donate, how we'd combine our stuff. She was genuinely excited about it. Started a Pinterest board with decoration ideas for my spare bedroom that would become her office. Talked about getting a dog once we were officially living together since she worked at a vet and could get a good deal on adoption fees. Mentioned wanting to paint the living room a different color, something warmer than the beige I'd chosen 3 years ago. I told her to pick whatever color she wanted. I'd help paint over a weekend. My buddy Dave was happy for us. Said it was about time I found someone worth sharing my space with. His wife started making comments about double dates being easier when we didn't have to coordinate between 2 places. My parents asked if this meant they'd be getting grandkids soon, which was embarrassing but also kind of nice that they approved of Brooke enough to think long-term. Everything pointed toward us having a future together. Stable relationship, compatible life goals, families that got along, shared values about money and responsibility. On paper, we were the couple that made sense. That's when Garrett started getting weird. February is when I really noticed it. He'd text Brooke constantly, like more than normal. I'm not one of those insecure dudes who monitors his girlfriend's phone or demands to know who she's talking to, but when someone's phone is buzzing every 10 minutes during dinner, you notice. And it wasn't just notifications from a group chat or something. It was direct messages from him specifically. She'd laugh at his messages, always saying it was just him being funny or venting about work or sharing memes. I'd ask what was so funny and she'd show me sometimes, but other times she'd just say, "Oh, you had to be there," or "It's an inside joke from high school." Started to feel like I was on the outside of their friendship looking in. The texting got worse as February went on. We'd be watching a movie and her phone would light up with his name. We'd be in the middle of a conversation and she'd get distracted responding to him. I mentioned it once, just casually, like, "Garrett's been texting a lot lately," and she got defensive. Said he was her best friend and she wasn't going to apologize for staying in touch with him. I backed off. Didn't want to be that boyfriend who made her choose between her relationship and her friendships. Plus, they'd been friends since high school. I'd only been in the picture 2 years. Made sense they'd have a different kind of bond than what she and I had. Or at least that's what I told myself. Then, he started inserting himself into our plans. We'd mentioned going to this new restaurant downtown that just opened, and suddenly Garrett would show up. Just happened to be in the area. Brooke would invite him because he's been having a rough time lately. And I'd just roll with it because that's what you do, right? You support your partner's friendships, especially when their friend is going through something. The rough time was apparently a girl he'd been seeing for like 3 weeks ghosted him. 3 weeks. This dude was acting like he'd gone through a divorce, posting sad quotes on social media, talking about how hard it is to find genuine connection these days. Brooke felt bad for him and wanted to be there as a friend. I understood that. What I didn't understand was why being there as a friend meant he needed to crash every single date we planned. February turned into this pattern, where Brooke and I couldn't do anything without Garrett somehow being involved. Movies, dinners, even just grocery shopping once because he needed to pick some stuff up and happened to be at the same store at the same time we were. Started to feel less like coincidence and more like he was tracking our social media to know where we'd be. But here's where it got interesting. Garrett started making these subtle digs. Nothing overtly disrespectful, just small comments that would plant seeds of doubt if you let them sit too long in your brain. He'd say stuff like, "Man, must be nice to have everything figured out at your age," with this tone that suggested having stability was somehow boring or selling out. Like being a responsible adult with a mortgage and a career was less valid than whatever he was doing. Or he'd tell stories about his weekend adventures, like he was Indiana Jones, instead of a pharmaceutical sales rep who went to the same 3 bars downtown and called it exploring the nightlife scene. Stories about meeting interesting people and having spontaneous adventures, always with this underlying message that Brooke was missing out by being in a committed relationship. Brooke started picking up on his comments. She'd mentioned how she wished she'd traveled more before settling down, how maybe she'd rushed into adulting too fast, how all her friends seemed to be having these wild experiences while she was meal prepping on Sundays and going to bed at 10 on weeknights. At first, I thought it was just normal quarter-life crisis stuff. Everyone goes through phases where they question their choices and wonder if they're living life right. I went through it myself a few years back before I bought the townhouse. It's natural to wonder if you're missing out on something. But the frequency of these comments increased as February turned into March. She'd see something on Instagram, some friend traveling through Europe, or trying skydiving or moving to a new city, and make comments about how she'd never done anything spontaneous, how her life was predictable and safe, but maybe too predictable and too safe. I tried to be understanding, asked if she wanted to plan a trip somewhere, maybe take a long weekend and go explore a new city. She said, yeah, that would be nice, but never committed to actually planning it. I suggested trying new hobbies or activities together, stuff that would break up the routine. She seemed interested, but never followed through. The thing is, our life wasn't boring. We did stuff. Hiking on weekends when the weather was good, trying new restaurants, going to concerts when bands we liked came through town. We had date nights and adventures and spontaneous moments. But Garrett was in her ear constantly reframing everything as settling or giving up on dreams or whatever narrative fit his agenda. I tried talking to her about it in March, sat her down one evening after work, turned off the TV, and asked if everything was okay, if she was feeling stuck or unsatisfied with our relationship or her life in general. She assured me everything was fine, said she was just going through a phase, that she loved me and was still excited about our future together, that moving in together was still the plan, and she couldn't wait for June when her lease was up. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We'd been solid for almost 2 years. One rough patch didn't mean the relationship was doomed. Relationships take work. They have ups and downs. You push through the hard parts because what you've built together is worth it. But Garrett kept pushing. He'd text her articles about why people should stay single in their 20s, these clickbait pieces from lifestyle websites about not settling too young, or videos about couples who took breaks to figure themselves out and came back stronger. Real subtle, right? Brooke would show me these things sometimes and laugh them off. Say Garrett was just being Garrett, always stirring the pot and playing devil's advocate. But I could tell part of her was absorbing it, taking it to heart, letting those ideas sit in her brain and ferment into doubts. In April, we had a party at my place for Brooke's birthday. Nothing huge, just close friends and some family. Maybe 20 people total. I'd spent weeks planning it, because that's how I operate. When I care about something, I pay attention to details. Started planning in mid-March. Made a list of everyone Brooke would want there. Sent out invitations 3 weeks ahead. Ordered a cake from that bakery she loved across town with a custom animal theme because of her work. Got her this really nice camera she'd been eyeing for months. She'd mentioned wanting to get into photography as a hobby. I'd been saving for it since January. Found a good deal in March and grabbed it along with a starter lens kit. Whole setup cost me about $800. Set up a themed dinner based on her favorite movie. Made foods that appeared in the film, decorated with colors from the movie poster, even put together a playlist. Invited everyone she cared about. Cleaned my place top to bottom the week before. Set up a drink station, got decorations, hung them the night before. The day of, I was up early cooking. Made appetizers from scratch. Prepped the main course. Timed everything perfectly. My mom came over early to help set up. Guests started arriving around 6. Brooke's parents showed up first with flowers. Her co-workers came next. My friends filtered in. Garrett showed up last, almost an hour late. Didn't apologize. His gift for Brooke? A last-minute gift card to Target. Not even a specific amount. The paper gift bag still had the price sticker on it. Then he spent the entire night monopolizing Brooke's attention. Every conversation she tried to have with other guests, he'd insert himself. Every photo people wanted to take with her, he'd jump into the frame. Started telling stories about their high school days. Inside jokes nobody else understood. Basically making it the Garrett and Brooke show. I tried to be a good host. kept food coming out, made sure everyone had drinks, cleaned up as I went. But I kept noticing Garrett pulling Brooke aside for private conversations, while everyone else stood around waiting to talk to the birthday girl. At one point, I was in the kitchen, refilling appetizer trays, and heard them talking on the back patio through the open window. Garrett was going on about some trip he wanted to take to Colorado, said he was planning it for next month, and wished he had someone to go with. Then he said, "You deserve someone who matches your energy, who wants to actually experience life instead of just existing through it." I stopped what I was doing and just stood there. Brooke laughed it off but didn't correct him or defend our relationship. Didn't say, "I'm happy with what I have," or, "That's not fair to say," just laughed like it was a joke. That should have been my first real warning sign, hearing her not defend us when her supposed best friend was calling our relationship boring and me inadequate. But I'm an analyst. One comment doesn't make a trend. One overheard conversation doesn't mean the relationship is over. I needed more evidence. The evidence came fast after that party, but in the moment, I just finished plating the food and brought it out. Sang happy birthday when we cut the cake, watched her open presents and smile at that camera, pretended everything was fine. Her parents pulled me aside before they left. Her dad said I'd done a great job with the party. Her mom hugged me and whispered that she hoped I'd be around for many more birthdays. Looking back, I wonder if she saw what was coming. By May, Brooke was distant, not in an obvious way, but in that subtle shift where someone's physically present but mentally checked out. She'd come over and spend half the night on her phone. When I'd ask what she was doing, she'd say, "Just scrolling," but I could see the messaging app open. Our conversation about moving in together had stalled. Whenever I brought up looking at places or discussing logistics, she'd change the subject or say we should wait until after summer. The lease deadline was approaching fast, and I needed to know if we were doing this together or if I should renew my current place. She started making plans without including me. Girls' nights became more frequent, which was fine, but then I'd see social media posts, and Garrett would be there. When I asked about it, she'd get defensive, said I was being controlling for asking about her plans, that I needed to trust her more. Trust wasn't the issue. The issue was her best friend was clearly trying to sabotage our relationship, and she was letting it happen. One night in mid-May, I decided to address it directly. We were supposed to have dinner at my place, but she showed up an hour late, distracted and distant. I asked if Garrett was causing problems between us. She exploded, said I was jealous and insecure, that Garrett was her best friend, and if I couldn't handle that, maybe we had bigger problems. That she was tired of feeling like she had to choose between her relationship and her friendships. The thing is, I never asked her to choose. I just wanted acknowledgement that his behavior was inappropriate, that constantly undermining your best friend's relationship isn't normal best friend behavior. We didn't fight often, but when we did, it was about Garrett. She'd accuse me of not liking him, which was true, but I never stopped her from hanging out with him. I'd point out his obvious attempts to create distance between us, and she'd say I was reading into things. Then came the incident that basically sealed our fate. Late May, Garrett invited Brooke to this concert. Some band she'd mentioned liking years ago was doing a show about 2 hours away. He bought 2 tickets without asking if I wanted to come, which was whatever, but then suggested they make it a whole weekend trip. Said they could get a hotel, make it a mini vacation like old times. I told Brooke I thought that was inappropriate. 2 nights in a hotel with a dude who clearly had feelings for her? Come on. She said I was being ridiculous, that they'd been friends forever, and nothing had ever happened between them, that I needed to work on my trust issues. Trust issues. Like I was the problem here. She went to the concert, posted photos on social media of them at the venue, at dinner, exploring the city. Garrett had his arm around her in half the pictures. The comments were full of people asking if they were together, heart emojis, all that stuff. She didn't correct anyone. When she got back, I asked how the trip was. She said it was great, that she'd needed that time to just be herself, without worrying about anyone else's expectations. That spending time with Garrett reminded her of who she used to be before she got too serious too fast. I asked what that meant for us. She said she needed space to figure things out, that maybe we'd moved too fast with the moving in talk, that she wasn't sure what she wanted anymore. First week of June, she came over and ended it. Didn't even have the decency to do it somewhere neutral. Used my living room, the place we'd spent countless nights together, to tell me she didn't think we were compatible anymore. Her reasons were textbook Garrett talking points. She said she felt like she was settling down too young, that she wanted to explore life more before committing to someone, that she loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore, that we wanted different things. I asked if this had anything to do with Garrett. She said no, but her voice cracked when she said it. I asked if she was planning to date him. She got angry, Said I was making this about him when it was about her needing to find herself. Find herself. At 27. After 2 years together. I didn't beg. Didn't ask her to reconsider or promise to change. Just asked if she was sure this was what she wanted. She said yes. So I said okay, grabbed the box of her stuff I'd already packed up because I'm not an idiot and saw this coming, and walked her to the door. She looked surprised that I didn't fight for her. Started crying. Said she hoped we could still be friends eventually. I told her I don't do friends with exes, that she made her choice and I respected it, but there was no going back from this. She left. I closed the door, sat on my couch, and just breathed for a minute. Wasn't even really upset, more like relieved that the uncertainty was over. Then I got the text. 2 hours later, Garrett messaged me. This dude had the audacity to text me directly. Said he hoped there were no hard feelings, that Brooke deserved someone who could match her energy, and that he'd make sure to take care of her. Take care of her. Like she was a rescue puppy he'd adopted from the shelter. I didn't respond. Blocked his number, blocked him on everything, and moved on with my life. Or tried to anyway. After the breakup, I did what any reasonable person does. Focused on myself. Hit the gym harder. Picked up extra projects at work. Started planning a solo camping trip I'd been putting off for years. Reached out to friends I'd maybe neglected while being in a relationship, and rebuilt those connections. My buddy Dave was going through his own stuff with his wife, so we started meeting up for lunch once a week. Just two dudes eating sandwiches and talking about life. He'd been warning me about Garrett for months. Said the guy gave off major snake vibes. Felt good to have someone validate what I'd been seeing. The first week after the breakup was weirdly easy. No contact from Brooke. No drama. Just moved forward. Renewed my lease for another year, which took about 5 minutes since I'd kept my place clean and paid rent on time. Landlord even dropped my rent by $50 because I was a good tenant. Week 2, I started seeing the social media posts. Brooke and Garrett everywhere together. Hiking trips, brewery tours, coffee shops. All the stuff she said she wanted to do, but was somehow too busy for when we were together. Comments from their mutual friends about how cute they were together, how they'd always suspected something was there. I didn't engage, just kept scrolling. Their relationship, their business. But then week 3, Garrett posted this story that made my blood boil. It was a photo of him and Brooke at some park, golden hour lighting, looking all couple goals. The caption said, "Sometimes the best things in life are worth waiting for. Patience pays off. Patience." This dude spent 6 months actively sabotaging my relationship and had the nerve to call it patience. Several people sent me screenshots. Asked if I was okay. I said I was fine, which was mostly true. The relationship was over. What they did after wasn't my concern. Then Garrett posted another one a few days later. Photo of them at a restaurant with the caption, "When you finally get the girl, everything else falls into place." Get the girl. Like she was a prize he'd won at a carnival. My buddy Dave called me after seeing that one. Said he ran into Garrett at the gas station, and the dude was bragging about how he'd won Brooke. How he'd played the long game and it paid off. How I was too boring for her anyway, and she needed someone who could keep up with her. I told Dave it didn't matter. And honestly, it didn't. Brooke made her choice. If she wanted to date someone who viewed relationships as competitions, that was her problem now. But the universe has a funny way of working things out. Week 4 after the breakup, my phone buzzed at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Brooke's name popped up. I'd never blocked her number because that felt dramatic, but I wasn't expecting to hear from her either. The text said, "Hey, can we talk?" I looked at it for a solid minute. Thought about not responding, but curiosity got the better of me. I replied, "About what?" 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, I think I made a mistake. And there it was. I put my phone down and went to bed. Didn't respond. Woke up the next morning to 4 more messages. She'd sent a whole essay about how she'd been confused. How Garrett wasn't who she thought he was. How she missed what we had. The 4th message said, "I miss you. I miss us." I grabbed my coffee and read through everything she'd sent. According to her texts, the relationship with Garrett imploded almost immediately after it started. Turns out when you build a relationship on undermining someone else's, you don't have much of a foundation. She said he was possessive and jealous. That he got mad when she wanted to hang out with other friends. That his stories about his exciting life were mostly exaggerated or outright lies. That the BMW was leased and he was drowning in debt trying to maintain an image. That his job wasn't as impressive as he made it sound. The pharmaceutical sales position was apparently an entry-level gig that mostly involved cold calling doctors' offices and getting rejected. The business trips he bragged about were just driving to different cities to drop off samples. The fancy dinners and concerts were all financed by credit cards he couldn't actually afford. She said she realized within a week that she'd made a huge mistake, that everything Garrett said about wanting to help her find herself was just manipulation to get her away from me, that he'd spent the past 3 weeks being controlling and demanding all her time, while simultaneously criticizing everything about her. The texts kept coming throughout the day. She said Garrett got angry when she didn't respond to his messages fast enough, that he made comments about her weight and what she wore, that he tried to convince her to cut off other friends because they didn't understand their connection, that within 2 weeks, he was already talking about her moving in with him to save money, despite his apartment being a disaster and him being thousands in debt. She said she broke up with him 2 days ago and he lost it, called her ungrateful, said she didn't appreciate everything he'd done to free her from a boring relationship, that she was making a mistake by leaving him because no one else would put up with her. Real charmer, that Garrett. I didn't respond to any of it, just read the messages as they came in and went about my day. Had a meeting at work, grabbed lunch with Dave, hit the gym, normal Wednesday stuff. That evening, she called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a 5-minute message crying and apologizing. Said she knew she messed up, that she got caught up in Garrett's manipulation, that she wanted another chance to prove she'd changed. Changed in 3 weeks. Sure. Thursday morning, more texts. She wanted to meet up and talk in person. Said she owed me a real apology. That texting wasn't enough to explain everything. I finally responded. I appreciate you reaching out, but I've moved on. I hope you figure out what you're looking for. Take care. That set off a whole new wave. She said she wasn't looking for anything. She'd already found it and lost it. That she knew I was the right person all along, and she'd been an idiot. That everyone makes mistakes and deserves a second chance. I didn't respond. Friday, she showed up at my place after work. Just knocked on my door like we were still together. I opened it because ignoring her felt childish, but I didn't invite her in. She looked rough, hair thrown up in a messy bun, eyes red from crying, wearing sweatpants and one of my old hoodies she apparently never returned. The sight of her in my clothes almost got me, not gonna lie, but I kept my composure. We need to talk, she said. I don't think we do. Please, just hear me out. I stood in the doorway, didn't move. You've got 5 minutes. She launched into this whole speech about how she'd been confused and scared, how turning 27 made her panic about her life choices, how Garrett got in her head and made her question everything good we had, how she realized within days of dating him that she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. She said she'd never stopped loving me, that every moment with Garrett she was comparing him to me and he came up short every single time, that she'd been an idiot for not seeing through his manipulation sooner. I miss you, she said. I miss us. I miss coming over after work and cooking dinner together. I miss watching you work on your car and explaining logistics stuff I don't fully understand, but listening anyway because you get so excited about it. I miss your family and how your mom always makes too much food. I miss everything. I let her finish, watched her cry on my doorstep, then said, You done? She nodded. Brooke, you didn't just make a mistake. You chose someone else. You listened to a guy who spent months tearing down our relationship and decided his version of life was better than what we had. You picked him. I know, and I was wrong. Let me finish. You didn't just break up with me. You broke up with me for him specifically. Then, when it didn't work out, when you realized he wasn't who you thought he was, you came running back. That's not love, that's convenience. Her face crumpled. That's not fair. What's not fair is you expecting me to be your backup plan. You wanted to explore and find yourself and see what else was out there. You did that. How'd it work out? She didn't answer. I'm not interested in being someone's second choice, I continued. You had a good thing and you threw it away because someone convinced you the grass was greener. Well, you went and checked. Was it? No, she whispered. Then I guess you learned something. But that doesn't mean I have to unlearn what I learned, which is that you're not as sure about me as I thought you were. She started crying harder. I was sure. I got confused, but I'm sure now. You're sure now because the alternative sucked. That's not the same thing. I stepped back into my doorway. I need you to leave, and I need you to stop contacting me. This isn't happening. We're not getting back together. You made your choice, and I've made mine. What choice? You're choosing to be alone? I'm choosing to not be with someone who couldn't appreciate what they had until they lost it. That's a lesson you only get to teach me once. She stood there for another minute, probably hoping I'd change my mind. When I didn't, she turned around and left. I watched her walk to her car, get in, and drive away. Then I closed the door and went back to my normal Friday evening. That weekend, mutual friends started reaching out. Apparently, Brooke was telling everyone that she'd made a mistake and wanted me back, and word got around. Some people were on her side saying everyone deserves a second chance and relationships are hard. Others were on mine, saying she made her bed and now she had to lie in it. I didn't engage in any of it, just told people I appreciated their concern, but my personal life was personal. Dave, being the solid friend he is, took me out for dinner Saturday night. We went to this steakhouse downtown and just talked about everything except Brooke. Sports, work stuff, his marriage problems, plans for the summer, normal guy conversation. Towards the end of dinner, he brought it up. You doing okay with everything? Yeah, actually, I am. No regrets? I thought about it. None. She showed me who she was when things got hard. When someone else offered her something shiny and new, she didn't even hesitate. That's not someone I want to build a life with. Dave nodded. Garrett's been going around telling people you stole his girl, by the way. Dude's delusional. I laughed. Let him think whatever he wants. Doesn't change reality. Reality being I dodged a bullet. Imagine if we'd moved in together. If I'd proposed. Then this happened. Fair point. The next week I heard through the grapevine that Brooke wasn't handling the rejection well. She'd apparently expected me to take her back immediately, and when I didn't, she spiraled. Started posting vague, sad quotes on social media. The whole performative heartbreak thing. Garrett, meanwhile, was also posting cryptic stuff about loyalty and betrayal. Apparently, he was mad that Brooke broke up with him after he'd fought so hard to be with her. The irony was completely lost on him. I blocked both of them on social media. Didn't need that energy in my life. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.